Okay, and we should be live on YouTube.
Great, thank you, Hannah. Welcome everybody to the planning meeting of the 15th of July 2021. On introduction, we want to make our council and committee meetings available to as many people as possible, regardless of where they are, virtually or in person. We are still getting used to having meetings and it's hybrid meetings with people both in person and zooming in. So please bear with us if it feels a little bit crunchy at times. These hybrid meetings will technically be informal because the government has not brought forward legislation to enable us to continue to operate virtually. But we will run them as if they were formal. They've been advertised. And as you can see, we still have agendas, reports, discussions and votes and minutes will be taken. Legally, only councillors present in person will be able to vote, which is a bit exclusive and unsatisfactory. So to ensure councillors can vote, at the council meeting of the 14th of July, we agreed to delegate to our planning and development manager, Jane Llewellyn, to carry out informal decisions made by councillors tonight. Otherwise, we'll be running the meeting in the usual way with everybody chipping in as we go. So next point on the question, any comments, questions or information from public or councillors which aren't specific to the appendix number 5? Excellent, great. Next item on the agenda, apologies for absence and declaration of members' interest. I've got an apology from John Nelson.
And Paul Horton.
And Paul Horton, thank you very much. And any declaration of any members' interests? No. Great, thank you very much. Next item, to agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of June 2021. I have in front of me. I guess we've all read them and seen them. There's no comments. If I could ask for someone to propose them, please. Thank you, Richard. Seconded by Mark. And all those in favour?
That's unanimous. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is to ratify the objection letter in response to the reopening of West Down Quarry Waitley, which we should be on the first appendix. Jane, do you want to run through why we had to do this?
Yes. So the deadline for commenting on the application to Somerset County Council fell in between the two meetings. So we wanted to ensure that we managed to get our response submitted on time. And we did that by contacting councillors on the planning committee for their agreement. So that was agreed. The responses were sent off, but because it wasn't agreed formally at a meeting, we need to just ratify our comments, which hopefully you have all seen as part of the appendix.
Rich.
Can I just say that I also made a separate objection?
Okay, great, thanks very much. So the next item on the agenda is the pre-application presentation.
Sorry, Steve, we need to actually vote on that.
Oh,
the ratification. Yeah.
Right. So if we could vote on that objection letter, please. If someone could propose that for me.
I think Maxine.
Sheila, someone second. Rich, all those in favour? Thanks very much. Forward.
Yep, and that's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the pre-application presentation from the Curo Housing Association on the reserved matters proposals for the outline planning reference 2019-1671 for Sandys Hill Lane.
If you could make both Valentina Warrens and Peter Roberts panelists, then they should join us very shortly.
Okay.
And I think they'll want to share their screen as well, so you may need to make one of them a co-host.
Great, thank you. Can I ask that you make Valentina a co-host, and can you also make Jessica Frapwell a panelist, please? She's with us today.
Sorry, do bear with us. Your volume's not coming through very clearly with us. We're just going to turn it up at our end. Okay, that should be better now if you'd like to try again.
Great.
Perfect.
So, yeah, I wondered whether you could make Valentina the presenter and
Okay.
also add Jessica Frapwell.
We have two people who seem to have registered under the name of Valentina. So our screen's currently showing the name Valentina twice. So I'm not quite sure which one of the Valentinas it is.
They are all co-hosts. So
Oh.
Okay, yeah.
Share screen.
You're all co-hosts, so you can share screens. That's fine.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. You've selected the correct Valentina, so thank you for that. I'm going to share my screen now with you. Okay. Okay, so can everyone see this?
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Brilliant. Good evening, everyone. My name is Valentina Warren. I'm a communications manager for Cura. I'm here with my colleagues Peter, who's a senior planning manager for Cura, and Jessica Frapwell, who's, well, I'm hoping she's here as well, who's an associate urban designer at Pegasus Architects. So I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of Cura. It's only going to take, well, less than a minute. And then I'm going to hand over to Peter and Jessica to present the actual proposals. So we're a housing association and house builder based in Bath, but we have operations across the west of England. We have more than 25,000 customers across the region and more than 13,000 homes as well. We build hundreds of new homes every year for sale and rent. As a housing association, we have no shareholders. So that means that any profits we make, whether that's on the housing association side or on the house building business, all of those profits we reinvest in our homes and communities. So that's in maintaining and improving our existing housing stock, in creating new affordable homes for people in our region, and also investing in supporting our communities. So I'm going to move on to the next slide.
Great, thank you, Valentina. So onto the site. So I'm sure most of you will know where the site is anyway, but the site straddles Sandys Hill Lane down at the south of Frome, with access from Wessex Fields Retail Park next to the McDonald's. Marston Trading Estate lies to the north, and then Little Keyford Lane lies to the southeast. I'll come on to this slightly later, but just to clarify that our Reserve Matters proposals are only for those residential elements of the site. So the site is, in its entirety, is a mixed-use site, including some commercial uses as well. And there'll be proposals for those elements will be brought forward in the future by a commercial developer in due course. So just a little bit of detail about the outline planning permission. As I'm sure you're all aware, outline planning permission for this site has been granted, and that was granted on the 4th of March this year. So the principle of development is established. The outline application was made by the land promoter Silverwood, and as said, the planning permission grants permission for a mix of residential and commercial uses. So in doing so, it establishes the principle of development, and it also granted full planning permission for the access into the site. Other components of the permission were the approval for the demolition of the existing farmhouse and buildings on site, and grant of the ability to develop up to 235 dwellings on the site. That's kind of relevant for the residential elements. Also, just in respect to the commercial elements, which, as said, are being brought forward by another party, that allowed for about 4,000 square metres of employment use, drive-through unit, food retail building, and a non-food retail outlet. Now, just in developing our proposals, we're aware that there were some concerns raised by stakeholders at the outline stage. Principally, those involved access and the demolition of the farmhouse. And I think that there were a few other comments made at that stage involving the density of development and the ecological value of the site. So we'll come on to those in due course, but just in respect of the first issue of the site access, the outline planning permission actually granted full detailed permission for that access. It was judged to be acceptable at that outline stage, and it's not within our gift to change that. So the proposed access point still stands, and that's what our proposal utilises. But in drawing up our proposals for the site, along with engaging with the local planning authority through the pre-application process, we've also undertaken a review of comments received previously and sought to proactively address those as much as possible. I'm hopeful that Jess will now join us to talk through the kind of key elements of the scheme, but I'm not sure that she's with us.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
don't worry. Good evening, everybody. So I'll now take you through the proposals themselves. So the reserve matters proposals that we're going to put forward are to deliver 198 new homes. This includes the open market homes, which will be provided through a mix of size and types, ranging from 1-bedroom flats to 5-bedroom family houses. And then the remaining homes will be affordable, comprising 47 social rent and 12 shared ownership. In summary, this housing mix reflects the Section 106 that was agreed with the planning authority to ensure compliance with local housing requirements. And these homes will be managed by Curo and will be allocated to those in need of affordable housing. Overall, the Reserve Matters scheme is proposing 37 fewer homes in total than those permitted at the outline planning permission. And we strongly believe that this lower density development responds quite positively from the community and the stakeholders' feedback we've received. What we're showing you now is the overall master plan of which we're proposing. So it covers the key changes of which we have made since the outline planning permission as a result of the feedback from local stakeholders and residents. So there's been an array of changes and evolutions taken place, but the three main elements we'd like to point out this evening are the retention of the farmhouse and the converted barn, so annotated with the letter A. So while permission was granted for the demolition of the farmhouse and outbuildings, we are aware that the local community and stakeholders do wish to retain these assets. So we completely sort of empathise with this, taken it on board, reviewed our proposals, including our drainage scheme and also sort of distribution of open space in this area. And we've now made it possible to retain these. The second element that has been sort of quite a drastic change has been the reorientation of the properties to protect from the noise, because there will be the commercial element coming forward as a separate application, and it would be it would only be relevant for us to respond to that. So we have reorientated the houses in the areas that are labelled B on the plan. And then finally, in terms of the Keyford House listed building, we've reviewed the relationship between the proposed development and Keyford House and realigned some of the main streets within particularly the northern parcel and a green planted buffer to the boundary to minimise the impact of the new development. This shows a close-up of the northern section of the layout. And then onto the southern element of the layout, which contains a lot of the area for bat mitigation and ecological corridors, which I'll come on to in a moment. So touching on the green infrastructure, we are proposing to reflect what was agreed under the outline planning permission and also satisfy those quantum of areas, including 2.12 hectares of open space, which includes 1.66 hectares of open space that will be allocated to bat replacement habitat, which overall is an over provision above and beyond the Section 106 requirement. In addition to the open space, there will be, two areas of play, so two play spaces, one in the southern part and one in the northern parcel. And just finally, in terms of the pedestrian and the cycle routes, they will be enhanced through the scheme, which I'll touch on in a moment as well. So this breaks down in more of a diagrammatic form those areas, the subcategories of open space. So this is the northern area, so you can see the play space in pink, quite centrally located, well overlooked by the residents or future residents, surrounded by other areas of open space and informal areas of play. This is moving on to the open space in the southern section. As I touched on, this does contain, in almost the periphery of the site, has ecological corridors. So the dashed line will be accessible habitat, which we've been working closely with our ecologist on, along with the play space on the eastern area, again in pink, which is well overlooked by residents. And it also does connect through with a pedestrian link from the development we're proposing through to the eastern boundary for others to be able to access that. Which moves nicely onto our slide for access. Oh gosh, I'm really sorry. Is there a little bit of background noise? I'll try and speak up. We are proposing a well-connected movement network throughout the site, consisting the link road into each parcel that runs off Sandys Hill Lane. This will be the existing alignment from Sandys Hill Lane and will be downgraded from the vehicular lane to a footpath and emergency access. The northern part clearly has a street hierarchy with a spine road, whereas the southern adopts more of a central loop with secondary streets coming off that. All adoptable streets are designed to adoptable standards and use clear classifications with more of a sinuous highway design incorporated along the open space edges. An element that we're quite proud of that we have integrated are the new pedestrian routes, which I've touched on. So you might be able to see just in the sort of dashed green leading to the southeast corner, we've running through the landscape buffers through the play space. And then a similar nature to that in the north, we've got a pedestrian link running beyond the northern boundary to connect into the wider existing context. These drawings show an indication of typical street scenes within the development. So these proposals aim to deliver a high quality range of houses in terms of their appearance and materials, We've touched on the design principles established at the outline design and progressed those and evolved in further detail. The architectural character of the dwellings will be drawn from the built form in the neighbouring listed buildings as well. So predominantly the dwellings will be of brick, but we have touched on more of a built form taken from the listed buildings in terms of stone and architectural features that are enhanced in pockets to the north of the north of the site. And in addition, as we've mentioned, the existing farmhouse and barn will be retained and integrated into the proposals in the north area of the site. And these show a little bit more detail of the houses running broadly throughout the scheme. But as I mentioned, we have got a separate appearance for the dwellings at the north of the site that will be included in our submission.
Thanks, Jess. So I think sometimes it's hard to get across the true nature of a place just with kind of technical drawings. So we thought it might be helpful just to give you some examples of previous schemes that Curo have developed. So here are a range of images from a few different developments. So we've got a couple from a scheme in Bath, one in Yatton and one in Keynsham. Just to try and give you a flavour of what we've built elsewhere. And I think it's to say that we genuinely try to create high quality and attractive places. And I think that's more important for us than other developers, if you like, because we retain the affordable housing stock. So 30% of it will be retained by Curo and lived in by Curo customers. So we've got a long-term interest in the development, and that's borne out through what we try to deliver. So just picking up on a couple of kind of final points of detail in the scheme. The scheme itself, in creating any new development, one of the big challenges is balancing parking provision. So ensuring that there's sufficient numbers to meet the demands of residents and not to lead to overspill parking, but also creating environments that aren't car dominated. So we have planned for a slightly lower level of parking provision than set out within the Somerset Parking Standards SPD. So across the whole site, we provide 479 parking spaces. So that's 18 spaces fewer than suggested through the SPD. But our approach still provides an average of 2.5 allocated spaces per property, with an additional 42 visitor spaces distributed across the scheme. We feel that provides us with the right balance of ensuring that there's adequate parking provision, but also the ability to create an attractive environment that won't be dominated by cars. And finally, on sustainability. So our application will be accompanied by a sustainability strategy that sets our approach out in detail. But in essence, we're adopting a fabric first approach in terms of enhancing the fabric of the buildings. We're also proposing the inclusion of PV panels as part of kind of a suite of measures that then creates site-wide emissions reduction of 10% 2013 building regulation standards. And in addition to that, we're also proposing wiring for on-plot parking spaces and garaging for electric vehicle charging points to be installed in the future. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I hope that's given you an overview of the proposals. Just in terms of where we are in the process, we are looking to submit the application well, all being well, tomorrow, so imminently. And obviously there'll be the kind of formal process of consultation through the local planning authority when the application is validated, but obviously very happy to engage and answer any questions that you might have on the scheme now.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Just for councillors' benefit, as this is a pre-application consultation, we won't be making a formal response to this. This is just our opportunity to ask any questions and feedback, any observations that you might have at this stage. And I'm going to start the ball rolling with a question, if that's okay. Can I just check, will Curo also be building the market housing? So will they be building the entire scheme? I see somebody nodding, that's great. And how will the 30% of affordable housing be put through the site? You know, will it be scattered through the development, or will there be blocks of affordable housing? You may have shown it on a slide, but I don't recall seeing it.
Yeah, they will be generally pepper potted throughout the site. So there isn't one particular cluster where that's where they're allocated. It's quite well sort of distributed throughout the site.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Thanks, Jane. Any other questions? I've got Mark first. And then Helen.
Thank you for the presentation. About the open space, you've allocated 2.12 hectares of open space, including the bat habitat. Who will be maintaining that open space?
So the proposal there is that it will be a management company, and that's established through the outline planning permission, section 106 associated with that.
Thank you. I'm just concerned that it could fall to our council to maintain it, and just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Helen, I think was the last question. Hannah, can you allow Helen? Thank you. Hello, Helen.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm really pleased to hear that you're going to keep the farmhouse. I'm thrilled to bits. That's really great. I don't remember the conversation about density, but yes, the fact that you're looking at drainage again and the ecological value of the area around the farmhouse, where we now know that there's a bat roost, I applaud the fact that you're integrating that into your scheme. I wanted to just ask about two things. I quite liked the design compared with some of the other things I've seen, the design of the houses. But I would just say that I personally, this is a personal thing, I don't feel that red brick is appropriate to Frome. I wasn't sure if I saw red brick on in your schematics or not. So I would just wanted to flag that up. And my other question really is that when you said that you're going to put PV panels on the houses, that's also great from my point of view. You said it would lead to a 10% improvement on 2013 building standards. Is that right? Is that the same thing as I'm not quite sure, is that the same thing as the fabric first approach? Does the fabric first approach lead to the 10% improvement, or is it the PV panels that lead to the 10% improvement, or is it a combination of the two? So it's a bit of a technical question there. Thank you.
Yeah, do you want me to pick that up? So it's a combined approach. So the kind of first contributing factor, if you like, is the fabric enhancements, but the majority will come from energy generation from PV cells.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Just so you're aware, Peter and Valentina, Helen Kay is a Mendip District Councillor. Just sort of better that you know about that. But Lizzie, so you have a question.
Thank you. And Helen teed me up nicely for the follow-up on the sustainability credentials of the building. 10% improvement on 2013 standards is frankly you know, the changes to building regulations that were mooted for 2021, which probably won't happen, talked about a 31% improvement on previous standards. Changes proposed for 2025 talk about 75 to 80%. We have a climate emergency, which we, Mendip and Somerset have all declared. I have had a look at the Curo website, couldn't find anything about your sustainability strategy or your own aspirations for reducing carbon emissions from your new build. So I'm very happy to, if you want to put a link in the chat to where we can find that information. I just think you can do more. I think saying fabric first and PV is just 10%, is just, you know, that's 2014, 2015 thinking, not 2021 thinking. So I would encourage you, I sound like I'm challenging you, I'm actually encouraging you to see if you can take that further. And I think there are various councillors and others involved with the council who'd be very happy to kind of have that conversation with you to see how you might achieve that. The other thing I would say on behalf of Paul Horton, Councillor Paul Horton, who's not here this evening, he would want someone to say about shared space and shared road space, and particularly what I think I saw is that the houses have back gardens and then all sort of face into roads. And whilst there are play areas in sort of designated spots, there's not that shared kind of, doesn't seem to be much that shared community and open space for people to come together, and things like community gardening, community play, safe spaces for play. So I think, you know, if there's, again, that might be in the detail that we see coming forward in the documents that you submit. But that's something that I think is very important to councillors too. And if I can do a third one, get them all done. I'm interested also in what conversations you might have had with the other applicants who are coming forward with proposals in the surrounding areas about connectivity between the different sites, and particularly where you've got the back corridor to the south of the site, how that might interact with the proposed developments, Selwood Garden community, sort of further south again, if my geography is right. Because what I'm worried about, and we've had this worry all along about this sort of lack of an overall master plan for the area, is that one developer puts something in which then actually is compromised by later development or isn't compatible with later development. So if you can give us a bit of a background on that, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Lizzie. I don't know if anyone wants to come back on that at the moment, or obviously when the application goes through, I'm sure we'll be having various meetings as well. So I'll leave it up to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to touch on well, all of those matters if helpful. Completely understand the position about renewables. I think everyone's aspiration is to go greener. There are obviously limitations to what can be achieved. So we are, as a company, exploring what we can do. I think what we've set out is a strategy that we can achieve, and we can achieve now and commit to. That's not saying that, you know, we won't do more in the future, and indeed we might be required to do more in the future. But we've also got to balance what we commit to with our overall ambition or overall aim of delivering affordable housing. So you know, it's the balance between going above and beyond on sustainability versus providing affordable housing for those in need to some extent. But yeah, I mean, it's something, you know, we've committed to the 10%, and that's what we can deliver, but it's an ever-moving feast. Just in respect to the shared play areas, yeah, I think that there are various areas on the master plan with shared services and areas of kind of less formal open space areas where I think it would be entirely appropriate and which will encourage you know, children to play in the streets and on those areas of open space. So hopefully you'll be able to pick those out within the detail of the application. And finally, on the back corridors point, just in terms of where we have retained that bat habitat, that's that's primarily around the kind of boundaries of the site, and they're the features that are used by the bats at the moment. So we've sought to kind of preserve and enhance those features. So whilst there isn't kind of an overarching master plan for this whole area, and indeed, you know, we're the only element of it that's got outline planning permission, or certainly the largest Selwood garden village hasn't. So so I guess we're preserving and enhancing those elements of the network that we can at the moment, and it will be for future developers of other sites to do the same, I'd suggest.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I'm sure we'll be having some further discussions on those points after the application goes in. Rich.
Yeah, thanks for that presentation. It's really good. I'm too, like Helen, very pleased to see the farmhouse retained, and I like the land around there. Just a couple of points for clarification here. For me, section 106 agreement presumably was for the extra land. Not pretty clear about that. The attenuation ponds, I first saw it, I thought, oh great, there's no attenuation ponds over there, there's no limits. That's great, because there are genuine play areas. And then I read in small print attenuation ponds. Does that mean there'll be wet areas all the time? You know, because you can't play in them if there's 2 feet of water in there. I get a bit angry when people confuse attenuation pond areas. So if you could, please, great to explain that a little bit more. And I would personally like to be able to see, and I appreciate you might not be able to do that yet, to be able to see some idea of the commercial offer on this site as well. So commercial properties, it would be nice to see what's going to go there, so that it gives us an overall picture. At the moment, we're looking at just the residential, and I like to see the rest of it as well.
Thanks, Rich. Again, Peter, I don't know if you want to come back on that, or we can have further discussions.
I'm afraid I couldn't hear it very clearly, but I think the first and third points that you made. So first one was regarding the section 106 and linkage with the commercial. Is that right? And
yeah.
And there was a little thing in the middle about attenuation ponds. Are they play areas or attenuation ponds? They can't be both.
Okay. So just on the section 106, yeah, I mean, it's drafted in a way that allows for a phased development. So the delivery of the residential and the commercial separately. In terms of, I'll come to your attenuation point after, but in terms of the commercial, yes, we're unfortunately, you know, we're not going to be the applicants for that element of the site. And so we don't have control over that and don't have a scheme for that, but understand things are progressing on that element, but can't provide any more detail than that, I'm afraid. In terms of the attenuation, yeah, those features are basins, and they will accommodate water in times of heavy rainfall, but they won't be permanent wet features. And we've gone through a design process with the landscape designers in order to kind of slacken out the gradients of those ponds, so they're not kind of, you know, craters with marshy land at the bottom of them. They're depressions in the ground which can be properly and utilised.
Yeah, and just sort of adding to what Peter's mentioned, is they are a slightly shallower gradient on one side. So the intention is that the wet area is in a particular position, strategically placed, that, as you say, they can't be sort of utilised as both play area and wet areas. However, due to the gradient and the design, some space in those areas is usable. And what we've done is we have got some supporting drawings, which you'll see with the application, that we have done sections through that, and some sort of quite nice sort of graphics to demonstrate and try and explain how they will be used.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any more questions from anybody? No. Great. Well, thanks very much for the presentation. It's really great that you come on a pre-app before the actual application's gone in, and hopefully we can have a few further meetings once we've all had a chance to look at all of the detail of the reserve matters, and we look forward to having further discussions with you. Jane, anything you want to add?
No, just that really. If you have got any questions for us in the meantime, or you want to send any further information through in advance of the application, then please contact me and I'll distribute that to councillors. And if anybody thinks of any questions later on, which often happens, then I'll feed those through as well for you.
That's great. Thank you for your time this evening.
Great. Thank you for your time. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, should we move on to the next item is number 623 on our agenda, which is 22 Wessex Lane. And I think we have presentation. Have you got a presentation, Terry?
I wasn't aware that was
No.
doing that.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. No.
I have got drawings, physical drawings there,
Right.
but I haven't got any soft.
I can, if you tell me which plan you'd like shown, I can put it up on the screen as long as the technology doesn't fail me.
So Terry Pinto is agent for the applicant, and he has some drawings with us, which Jane is going to try and put up on the screen, so that those joining this meeting virtually can also see what we're looking at here in the chamber.
Hello everybody, my name is Terry Pinto of Pad Architects and Broom. This is a resubmission for 22 Wessex Lane. The original application was rejected. Thank you for turning me on, Sheila.
Can everybody hear Terry? If you could just, yeah, thanks.
Sorry about that, I'll start again then. Hello, my name is Terry Pinto of Pad Architects. We're architects in Broome, and the architects for the application, which is a resubmission for 22 Wessex Lane. The original application, politely put this, we had issues with the Civic Society and the Conservation Officer, and it was submitted during the pandemic. It was the original planning officer, Lorna Elstock, was minded to approve it, and it was all ready to be approved. And then she had an accident, and it all went south, and it was rejected subsequently by the planning officers. We tried to negotiate with the planning department to reduce the massing to no avail, and with the conservation officer. So this scheme is a revised scheme that takes into account, in our opinion, issues that were raised, but also maintains the client's requirements. Part of the issue was we introduced different materials that, to the scheme. So we've done a more conservation-minded approach on this scheme that mimics the existing elevations using the ashlar stone and the random rubble stone for the eastern elevation, which was of contention with the Civic Society. However, the Civic Society, we only got a response from the Civic Society and the chair of the Civic Society, who lives adjacent to the site, who complained about the scheme. What we'd like to say is they've just rehashed the old objections. One of them was that the view from Court Street, we would block the view of Melrose House. What they neglected to note was there was a house being built which actually blocks the view of Melrose House, and our design doesn't block the view of Melrose House, and we submitted drawing 1824 AL110. Pull that up. What we have submitted today is a response to Dr. Patricia Smith, who's the head of the Civic Society and the owner of 21 Melrose Place, that shows, we will be submitting this as a document to the planning department, that shows the photo that the Civic Society used in the original application, which was incorrect because it showed the gates that were open,
and it didn't show for West End Court. So if you look at the photos there, the one on the left is the scheme as is, and if you look, there's a black blob just in the middle that up a bit, up a bit, up a bit, right, fire. That is for West End Court, which has just been built, and it blocks every single view of the Grade 2 star listed house. Whereas if you look at our elevation, we don't block any views. The design has purposefully been done that it doesn't block any views of any of as you go up Zion Path. What they've also stated is that the extension is inappropriate on the eastern elevation as you walk up Zion Path. So if you pull up Jane 1824 AL 108. Now, if anybody, a lot of us have lived in Frome a long time, and we know that Zion Path sometimes was unwalkable because of the brambles going down there. My client has subsequently cleared all the brambles, which has given this lovely view. But we've contacted Somerset. They own this chain link fence, and they're willing to do nothing about it because it's in a state. So what my client does for her own security has planted you can see in the top photo, a young yew tree hedge. And obviously that will mature over the next couple of years. So the bottom photograph shows the visualization with the extension and the mature yew tree hedge, which is trying to be respectful of the landscape, biodiversity with the yew tree hedge. I can't see anything on there, I'm afraid. So I do take contention with the Civic Society to say this is severely affecting the conservation area. They also say to the fact that the eastern elevation, which is that elevation, is a fine elevation. Actually, I'll disagree with them because the principal elevation is the southern elevation, which, sorry. Have you got the principal elevations, Jane?
I will just have a look for you.
So the principal elevation is the southern elevation, which is the main entrance to the house, which has a well-detailed bay window and gable. So what we're doing is by creating the symmetry, we're emphasising actually the nicest bit of the building. So we're actually looking at, we've actually analysed it. The eastern elevation is actually poorly proportioned, and you can't see it all when the gates are shut. So, but as you walk down the Tux Lane, our elevation, it only reveals itself slowly as you walk down the Tux Lane on the top half.
Did you mean that one, or did you mean a photo?
No, that's the existing. So you can see the top left elevation is the principal elevation because you've got the nice bay window. But then if you look at the bottom right elevation, you can see it actually looks slightly, proportions are wrong because below the ground floor windows, there's a lot more stone. So it's slightly incongruous. So we don't see that as the principal elevation. We see the southern elevation with the main entrance, and we're making that into an elegant elevation for the building. The next issue the Civic Society and Dr. Patricia Smith have raised is that we're blocking the view down Zion Path. Now, this is information that I've just submitted to the planners yesterday. Only today. There is a land boundary dispute between Dr. Smith and the applicant, which is currently in the hands of lawyers. Despite this, Dr. Smith has erected a fence. So if you walk down Zion Path now, you will see a lovely timber fence blocking the view down over the houses. This brings me to my final, I'll be quick, I promise. This brings me to my other one. The Civic Society and Dr. Smith say all the materials are alien to the site. So we have a simple timber porch with a cedar roof to emphasise the entrance and make it more low carbon so that it's not lost. What Dr. Smith neglects to mention is that on her own building, 21 Melrose House, she has a timber clad entrance porch, which is what we're doing. So I struggle to see how they're different, how on a Grade 2 star house, you can have a new timber clad entrance porch, but on an NDHA, we can't. It's a very simple, minimal, contemporary extension. We didn't want to fight the building, so we kept it minimal. And I think that elevation that you're showing there as well, as you walk down Simon Path, the top image is existing, the bottom image is proposed, you cannot see the two-storey extension. The building has been massed in such a way, as you walk down Simon Path, you can't see it from that. But as you get past the railings, it will be the hedgerow, and you won't see the extension as you walk down past the railings, down where we've got the chain link. So we've opened up what is the most elegant facade of the building by proposing some nice metal railings. Now that chain link fence is owned by Somerset County Council. My client, the applicant, at her own expense, is putting some nice black metal railings there that are more in keeping with that area, and it will open up the view to that principal elevation of the house. So we're proposing that as well. One of the other issues was parking. Highways on the original application had no objection. We showed there's provision for 4 cars, which is more than we can put, so we meet that. There was an argument to say, how do we ascertain sustainability on this? There is no defined matrix to define a sustainable house at the moment, or passive house. We haven't got the money to do a passive house, and this is an existing building. What I would like to say is we're local architects, both directors. One has built a zero carbon house, new build, and I've just totally eco-refurbished my house. We practice what we preach. If we're to meet our targets for Paris protocols, it's not the new builds that we need to worry about, it's our existing houses. We will be doing, so we are proposing aluminium windows, which are much more thermally efficient. They will be painted so they can look like the windows in the existing house are painted, so it will look the same. They will be triple glazed, ultra thermal efficient, so we'll be improving the thermal efficiency of that. We will be insulating the building. I'm not going to say what form of renewable energy we want them to put in until we do a detailed design, and I can't define that. But what we will be doing is applying for the renewable heat incentive to decarbonise the house and take it off gas. And that will be part and parcel of that. The other issue that was brought up by the Civic Society is the ceiling roof is alien to the site. I think the site's full of grass and lawn and trees. I don't think a ceiling roof is alien to the site. It is part and parcel of the site. And it breaks down the massing of the building as well. And it enhances biodiversity. And it will also mitigate against rainfall because the ceiling will attenuate rainfall. So we're putting less pressure on the extension on the main rainwater side. I think I've talked too long. What I would say is there's only objection has been from the head of the Civic Society, and the current application has much more letters of support. And we have an applicant that is actually turned a site that nobody could see and didn't exist. Most people in Frigga, where's this building come from? And now they walk by and they see Helen doing a lovely garden, and we're doing a building with love. And finally, the later living element, it's for the applicant's father. When he dies, if he dies, he may live forever, I don't know, but when he passes away, there is a golden opportunity here for either a rental property that meets a need for later living or an Airbnb, but that would be subject to the required planning permissions. There is, I think, sorry, I wasn't aware that I had to prepare a speech today. So
No, it's fine. Thank you. Thanks, Terry, for all of that. That's great. James, do you just want to introduce what the application is?
Yes, so so the description for this application is the eco refurbishment and 2-storey extension with a separate annex with a carport and associated works. And as Terry said at the beginning, we have seen a previous application which was refused by Mendip, which again Terry set out the reasons for that refusal.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from any?
I'd better say a bit.
Mark first. Yeah.
Yeah. Before I comment, I've been made aware of a communication between Dr. Smith of Melrose House and the Society to Jane Owen, our planning manager, saying some FDC councillors have been subject to the applicants. At least one of them has previously made reference to meeting with her. If any are present on the planning committee tonight, I hope they'll remain neutral or declare an interest. I assume that's me because I am the only ward councillor who's on this planning committee, and I have met with the applicant and the architect at the applicant's request. I think the major purpose of being a town council is to meet our ward councillors and meet with them and discuss any concerns they have. And so that's why I've met with the applicant before. If Dr. Smith had asked me as her ward councillor to meet with her, I would have afforded her the same courtesy. She hasn't done that. I want to make it clear that I have no personal or pecuniary relationship with the applicant. And therefore, having spoken to the chair of this committee, I do not feel that I have to declare an interest in this matter.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for that clarification. So any questions? Any councillors? Rich?
Just say that I don't have any objections to this. Say there may be conservation grounds, but actually considering what else is going on around there, and then there's a lot of support from other residents for this, which is unusual. I don't actually have any objections.
Great, thanks. I sort of echo that really. I mean, there has been development on this area, and I think this proposal enhances it. I'm not a planning expert, not a conservation expert, but when I see it, it looks very nice. Sheila.
I agree. I think this.
Speak up a bit, Sheila. I don't know if people are
Yes, so I don't have any objections either. I think it's a fairly modest change considering all the changes that are going on around that area. And I think one of the issues, I think it's a great shame actually that these two neighbours are not able to, for instance, share the pathway that runs across the top of the site. And that there is such disagreement on something that is basically it's tricky because the Civic Society want to maintain old buildings and people want to upgrade and improve their buildings, and I think this has been done relatively sensitively, and I can't see the major problem. I think it's a pity that this is happening on this particular site.
Thank you, Sheila. Any other questions or comments from anybody?
Lizzie has just asked what our comments were last time, and I'm just in the process of here we go. So last time we said no objection in principle, subject to the comments from the conservation officer. A condition should be imposed that the annex should not be sold or let separately unless otherwise agreed by the local planning authority. So no objection in principle.
That's fair enough.
Jane, do you think this will, I mean, it's going, presumably will go to the conservation officer. So do you think that's something that we should comment directly to the conservation officer?
So the conservation officer will be consulted as part of the application process, and everybody who has commented on an application, the conservation officer or whoever will be able to see those comments. I believe the conservation officer who dealt with it previously may not.
It was Felix, and then when he left, I think Jane took over.
Jane took over. So they will be aware of our comments, but there is no harm in me sending them directly if you think that would help.
I just wonder if we want to be more detailed about the comparisons with other buildings, that, you know, other changes to buildings in that area with the changes that have taken place on this house. I don't know whether that would be helpful, but it's.
I mean, I think that's probably set out quite clearly in the design and access statement.
Okay.
And I, you know, I can say as part of our response that, you know, we have read the design and access statement, and assuming you agree that, you know, the changes that have been made as part of this application and in relation to adjoining listed buildings, we are happy with those changes.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. Any other questions or comments? So I don't think there's any objection coming forward. Probably, if anything, our previous comments apply, I would say.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And with the addition of, as I was just saying to Sheila, you know, about having read through the design and access statement and appreciating the changes that have been made on this application. Yeah. So, in our previous submission, we did say that we believe that the annex should be conditioned to not be sold or let separately. Are you still happy that that would be the case? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So if you're happy with that, if we do the voting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So voted on objection.
No objection. No objection in principle. Sorry, I think I may have closed it. Oh no, I didn't. No objection in principle, subject to the comments from the Conservation Officer. A condition should be imposed that the annex should not be sold or let separately unless otherwise agreed by the local planning authority. And we are happy that the amendments explained in the design and access statement are suitable.
Yeah.
Something I'll think of a better wording, but yeah.
Okay, if everyone's happy with that, someone propose that for me, please. Thanks, Rich. Second by Sheila. All those in favour? Yeah, Lizzie's had to go.
So yeah,
Lizzie was in favour.
Yeah.
Great.
So yes, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I can go for my wedding anniversary.
You
now.
can.
Cheers.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Good night. Next item is.
Next item is number 624 on our list, and it is 157A, the Butts. The application is for change of use of a light industrial premises with office and trade counter to a paving and landscaping display and sales centre with storage and the display of retail goods. You will have all seen, and I know you've all seen and looked at the plans in advance, and are probably familiar with where this is along the Butts. So it was previously occupied by a company who manufactured and installed electronic metal gates. The Environmental Protection Officer from Mendip, who looks at noise issues, is recommending that a condition is applied to restrict the opening hours to, I can't remember, I think it was 9 till 5, and a shorter period on the Saturday, just to reduce any impact from noise on the adjoining properties. They've also stated in the design and access statement that no manufacturing will take place on the site and there'll be no alterations to the existing building. There are 10 existing parking spaces that serve the premises, and obviously an existing access into the site. When I looked earlier today, there were no objections online, and there is also support from the district ward councillor for this application. I think, just to reiterate, you know, that there has been a similar process or business on the site. A couple of comments have been concerned about the additional traffic that this may generate, although, as I say, there are 10 parking spaces there and an existing access, so I would say it would be unlikely that County Highways would object on those grounds. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jane. I mean, I think, yeah, it is the access onto the Butts that I think raised a few questions earlier on, and as I think as James just set out, that there is an existing industrial unit there, so the actual increase onto the butts is, there won't be an increase because there is an existing one there already. So any questions on that one, Rich?
I support this. You know, it's employment, it's land, it's a good change of use, probably a good business decision. I support it.
Great, thanks very much.
It was previously car sales, wasn't it? Before the alarm access people went
Yeah.
in. There's a car sales lot, so this will be less traffic than
You would have, yeah.
that would have generated.
Any other questions? Any other comments? So I don't think we see any objection to that from councillors. So do we vote individually or collectively at the end of it?
I was just going to ask whether or not you wanted to say no objection, or whether it's one that you actually want to actively support because of the employment opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to support it as opposed to just no objection.
Yeah.
Because it could be, we could have had an application to clear it and put houses
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can say actively support this application and welcome the employment opportunities that it brings.
Great, thanks very much. Someone proposed that? Thank you, Mark. Seconded by Rich. All those in favour? Thank you very much.
And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us on to application number 620 on our list. And this is the former Dewson's unit at Station Approach. And this is an application to change the use from a builder's merchants to, I'll just say retail. I won't try and say the sui generis bit. So this is an application actually on behalf of B&Q. I've had a look through the transport assessment that they've submitted with the application. They currently have 22 car parking spaces, and they will have 3 of those for blue badge holders, and there are 6 cycle parking spaces. It will increase the amount of daily traffic slightly, but what it'll do is it will change the peak times for traffic. Previously it was busier in the morning. I guess that's when all the builders went to get their materials, but now that will be spread more evenly throughout the day, and there will be 4 HGV trips per day. That there isn't an existing B&Q in Frome for them to compare that travel data with. So what they've done is they've checked it against when it was used as the Dewson's premises. It's actually considered to be an out of town location, just simply because of the distance from the town centre. But you know, given that it is so closely linked to public transport, with obviously Station Approach where the train station is, there are good walking and cycling routes, which we know, you know, people do walk from the town centre to the station, and also I think it will benefit the existing businesses that are certainly seeing more of those at Station Approach, sort of smaller businesses, and again, you know, there will be employment generated. I know there was employment previously, but it has actually been vacant for 2 years, so at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Any questions or comments from anybody? Rich?
This is another one I support.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same. I mean, I think it's great that it's coming back into use. It's been, it's been laying there for 2 years. That whole station area has sort of regenerated itself, which is amazing, really, and it's quite buzzing now. But certainly at the weekend, and I think by making this place look a lot smarter, it can only help.
Is it right that it's not like a typical B&Q store? I'm told it's more of a place to click and collect.
I would imagine from the size of it, it probably won't be like you say your typical, it will I can see that it would work well as a click and collect. Whilst most B&Q or stores of that type that you see of that size, you know, would have far more parking spaces. Because of the size of the unit, they actually exceed the car parking requirement based on the size of the unit. So yes, I would say that was a reasonable assumption.
So it could be more of a, like a screw fix thing that we're familiar with on the Commerce Park.
Yeah,
So
or
it'd be hit and run really, you get in there, pick your stuff up and go away, so it wouldn't be.
yeah, or as Argos used to operate when it, yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
No, I join Richard supporting it.
Yeah. Okay, no objections to that at all. Oh, there was one comment from Paul Horton, spoke to him earlier on there, and evidently the pavement leading up towards the station, all of the, or most of the curbs have been lowered to allow for cycle or wheeled access, apart from one. So if we could make sure that that one is dropped curb, I think is one of them, to make it easier to use the footpath to and from the station through across that side.
Okay, I may just check with you afterwards where he's referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So are we happy to, as we did previously, actively support and welcome the employment opportunities that this group will bring forward? We would, however, like to see the provision of a drop curb wherever it may
Do we
be.
want to encourage the, because presumably they will develop that site a bit, so we would want to encourage the use of electric charging points and that sort of thing in that area. I mean, it seems an opportunity, and presumably they could have solar panels on the roof, and maybe they're going to do that, but we would encourage them according to the guidelines that we developed and approved yesterday.
They contribute towards a bus stop there outside the station.
Run out of space.
That's section 106 money must still be there.
There was a criteria on it that if it wasn't spent within 10 years, it had to be repaid to the developer. Yeah. So sorry, charging points, bus stop contribution and solar panels on.
Well, it's just according to the regulations. That
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I can offer to put them in touch with Freco to talk about the solar panels as an initiative. Okay.
Great.
I've got all that.
So voting on what James just read out.
Yep.
I'll propose that. Which seconded it?
That's
thank you.
unanimous. Thank you. And the last one that I had highlighted for discussion, really just so that I could say absolutely fabulous. So, oh, sorry, being cheeky and I've lost my notes. So this is item number 630 on our list. It's 20 Bath Street, better known as absolutely fabulous. And this is an application to reinstate the shop front. You'll probably recall that it was damaged a while ago, and there was some serious support to stop the building from completely collapsing. And this is just an application, obviously, to reinstate the shop front, and it looks as though it's going to be done well. And I really raised it because, you know, I think it's one that we might like to support and welcome it coming forward.
I totally agree with that. I think what they seem to be doing is absolutely great. And that whole Bath Street, some of the facades are looking really nice. The one that's been cleaned just down the hill, which also looks really great now. So I would vote that we congratulate them and actively support that.
Yes.
Great. So if we can vote on that, I'll propose that, and Mark can second it. Thank you very much.
That's unanimous as well. Thank you. So unless there are any others that councillors particularly want to raise for discussion, No.
Great. In which case, can we vote that there is, we have no objections on the other applications on the list. So if someone could propose that from Mark, thank you very much. Seconded by Sheila. And
Yep, that's unanimous as well. Thank you very much.
Right, that's brings that part of the meeting to a close. The final part of the agenda is the next planning meeting will be on the 5th of August 2021.
Can I send my apologies in advance?